It's that time of week again, one of the best days to be a seasonal anime watcher. Log Horizon Season 2, Episode 2 has arrived. And I am so happy. Oh, I'm so happy to see this episode once again because I just cannot get enough of that database. I really can't. I can never get enough of that database. So, this week's episode has a lot of content. A lot of stuff really goes down in this episode. If you look at the episode, basically, it looks just like Shiro's going around collecting a party to be able to go on a full-scale raid. But there is a lot of stuff that happens in this episode, like the entire bit with Natsugu and Maruye. We got the entire bit with Shiro talking with the guild leader of William. Like the entire bit with Democracy. Remember Mr. Democracy? That is like... Mr. Democracy. Demi has been reduced to Mr. Democracy in this. Oh my god, man. That's pretty fucked up, man. That is really fucked up. Shiro and his evil glasses, invisible glasses. That is just. Oh my god. That right there is just so funny when you see him making fun of Demi in the majority of this episode. Like, in the later half, you see him just making fun of him and all that, putting him down. And when you have Tetra come in and get introduced as a character, and you see her talking about freaking Demi. That was great. That was really good. So, there's some conflict that is brought up in this episode. The conflict that we see is that Demi, or Democracy, Mr. Democracy, is pretty much shown that he has a grudge against Shiro, which we already knew about, since technically Shiro beat the shit out of him in last season. And so, Mr. Democracy, I want to call him that from now on. That's pretty fucking funny. That's a really good name. But Mr. Democracy, pretty much, he wants to crush Shiro's dreams. He's going to try to ruin the raid. As we can see in the ending of this episode, he's wanting to try to crush Shiro's dreams. He's going to make him feel how he felt. And so clearly, he's definitely going to be the downfall of the entire team if he continues to do what he wants to do. Shiro needs to get him on a tight leash. Now, the episode, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that goes down. Like, Natsugu and Maruye, that entire bit, you could get an entire romance-feeling vibe come off of that. Because, I mean, there's been a lot of shipping in this series, like Akatsuki and Shiro and all that. But Natsugu and Maruye has always been shipped together, and they've always looked like some form of couple, since Natsugu technically does love her. And so, with this episode, you get that entire romance feeling from Maruye and Natsugu, since technically they're talking every single day at 9 p.m. Every single day, they're just chatting. They're not talking about the raid, you know, since they can't really talk about personal things because of spies, but they're just chatting. And that right there leads to, you know, probably a couple, or a romance. And with that chatting, that's actually a good sign for Natsugu to probably get with Maruye, which I hope he does this season. So, I love the entire overall romance feels of that section of this episode. And then we have Akatsuki in this episode that shows that she's going through her own dilemma in this episode. Like, she shows that she's not strong enough. She's never went on a raid before, as she states, and so she doesn't have the proper raid equipment to be able to go on high-scale raids like Shiro's currently doing. And, like, even if she was to go to a shop and buy an expensive weapon, those weapons are technically not, you know, raid equipment level weapons, like, that can beat the shit out of boss monsters in raids. So, it's sad to see her entire perspective in this episode, because clearly, it's affecting her a lot how she's been left behind by Shiro, Natsugu, and, you know, they're doing their own thing while she's just sit back at Akiba protecting a princess that she really doesn't want to protect. So you see her conflict, and it's really upsetting it to see like that, and this leads me into something I do want to talk about. Last week, I didn't really talk about it because I was just too into the database and shit, but I want to talk about it this week. The opening song. There's a couple of things in the opening song that definitely make me question what the fuck is going down. Like, last week's ending part of the episode, I had to wrap my mind around what the fuck was going on. For instance, you had, you know, Akatsuki and Shiro supposedly say they died. It was at New Year's Eve or winter, supposedly, like Christmas. They were dead, and looks like they were on the moon, from what I remember. So, that entire bit, I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then, when I look at the opening song in this week's episode, I was like, wait a minute, Akatsuki's laying on the freaking ground, like, you know, like she's dead or something, like, you know, you would do a freaking chalk mark all around her corpse, like she was dead. And I'm like, is she gonna die? Now, there's another little bit of foreshadowing in this episode that technically foreshadows what happened last week. For instance, how we found out Akatsuki and Shiro died, pretty much. Like, supposedly they died, and I'm guessing they were at the respawn point or something. I want to say that's the respawn point where they were. We have Shiro talk to William in this episode that says, like, have you ever died, Shiro? Have you ever experienced death? He's like, no, I haven't died once since I've been here. And that pretty much tells us, like, right there, that's foreshadowing for what happened last week in the final part of the episode. It's foreshadowing to show that he will die this season, and Akatsuki also will die. So, and also one other thing you can put alongside that is, like, when you die, you feel a sense of failure. Like, you pity yourself, like you're awful, like you're terrible, stuff like that. You have a sense of failure, and so Shiro is probably going to have to go through this too, along with Akatsuki. So, I like the overall development of that, and that was a very smart move to foreshadow that, but I don't know if that's a really good thing, the way they actually just went right off the bat and told us they died at the end of the last episode. For instance, that was not a good way to go, I don't think, from my own perspective, since I'm an anime-only watcher. I don't know if that technically was like that in the light novels or not, but going out of your way to actually letting us know they already died kind of ruins the overall build-up of that scene. But if it wasn't for that, I probably would have missed the overall, I guess, foreshadowing and death flags in this episode, so I guess it helped there. Music, for the most part, fucking great music, classical Log Horizon music, so, I mean, hey, if you loved Log Horizon music in the first season, you'll definitely love the music in the second season. Animation, for the most part, looked really good up until certain points. Certain points looked a little bit derpy, reminded me a little bit of Log Horizon Season 1 animation, which I watched the entire fucking season of Log Horizon Season 1, so I'm not gonna really bitch on animation. I'm happy it's been improved at the very least just a little bit, so I guess I'm not gonna complain much on the animation. Now, like I said, the episode, it builds up a lot of things, just shows us the start of the raid. We're having our entire group of Chiro and everybody just walking to the place where the dungeon is to go in the raid and win. Now, oh yes, one thing I want to bring up is Tetra. Tetra is introduced in this episode, and her character, very self-centered. Like, she talks about herself and she needs to be praised or whatever. Like, she's like, I love rubbing up against guys, but I don't like them rubbing up against me. I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, okay. And I was like, that's pretty funny. And then the entire bit with that scene, it made me start thinking, like, wait a minute. Tetra is introduced this episode. She's starting to rub all over fucking Natsugu. I mean, she takes this fucking shield, runs off with it in the middle of the episode. And so it makes me think, like, wait a minute. We have a Natsugu and Marie type moment in this episode. We see some romance feelings between them. And then we have this girl, Tetra, that's introduced this episode that seems to be all over Natsugu. I mean, she's all over him. So it's making me believe that there's going to be some form of conflict, like a love triangle or something between Marie, Natsugu, and Tetra. I'm believing that's what I'm seeing right now after this episode. We'll have to see where that turns out. Overall, the episode is very good. I enjoyed it. Cannot wait to find out what happens next week. I'm really excited to find out what Mr. Democracy is going to do, and I'm excited to see exactly what is going to lead up to the point where Shiro and Akatsuki are going to die. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about this episode, and all of you light novel readers, let me know, did they adapt this right? Let me know in the comments below. Love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.